I have probably a unique perspective on the cybersecurity industry after 30 years, 25 of which as an industry analyst. 4 of those were at Gartner. So I'm a former Gartner analyst, like a couple of other speakers you've had tonight or today. I'm going to walk you through my data, which is fresh as of last night when I was putting the slides together. You'll see why I have to put them together at the last minute, because this industry changes constantly. From my calculations, there are about 250 acquisitions of cybersecurity companies every year. There are 350 to 400 new investments every year. About 200 go out of business and disappear every year. And then it's hard to track, but I'll show you how I think there are 200 created every year. So it's a full-time job for me and my team to keep track of just the vendors and where they sit in this space. So I take a very easy to understand approach to cybersecurity in that I use the layered model. So nothing fancy, no NIST frameworks, no MITRE ATT&CK frameworks, but the layered model, which is something that's so easy for everybody to understand. And typically the layered model was always network, endpoint, data, application, identity, so those big 5. But it's interesting, since I've tracked this industry over the years, GRC has crept to the top, right? GRC was always, let's say it was an afterthought. It was, oh my gosh, now we have regulations. We have to do something to demonstrate that we are following all the rest of these control points. And GRC is now the largest category of these 18 categories. So there are 4,380 cybersecurity companies. That's a number that I always question other people's numbers, because prove it. And so I prove it every single year because I publish it in a book. And you can go through that and count the number of vendors in that book. The reason I put it in a book form is that, especially today, that list of all the vendors is incredibly valuable. Now, so far as I know, nobody's just optically scanned my book, which they could do. But if you take that list and hand it off to AIs today, you could recreate everything that I've done in the last 3 years to create a platform to investigate those. So we're entering this phase where AIs are going to be better than industry analysts at summarizing data and giving you insights. And I'm discovering that personally myself. And I think it's a big threat to the Gartners and Forresters of the world that they're not even aware of yet. One of the things you can do, which we've done over the last 12 months, is pass all the information you have on all the vendors, including their websites, to the AIs, and ask them to summarize the products that they have. And through that methodology, it takes more than a week of back and forth with the AIs to get what you want. But if you want the products, the names, the descriptions, the feature sets, the integrations, about 30% of them, we can get pricing information, believe it or not, how they map to MITRE, how they map to NIST, we can do all that for all the vendors, and we get 11,340 products. One of the problems I had when I was faced with needing to get the products was that it took me over 4,000 hours to categorize all the vendors. And if you've ever spent as much time looking at vendor websites as I have, you realize that vendors seem to do everything they can to obfuscate what they do, right? So all they're doing is they want to sound bigger than they are. So even if they're just a network monitoring solution, they're going to tell you they're solving all the big problems in the cybersecurity space, et cetera. You just can't get through it. So you have to look at the products. And it turns out it's easier to handle the product categorizations because in a product description, you actually have to say what it does and the tools it uses and use SEO keywords. So there's no problem with the product. Once you adjust all the products, you can just search them. So if I want to search on hardware security module, I can find the 45 hardware security module products from 39 vendors all across the world. And that only takes a second. So a lot of work to get there, but now I'm doing the work of an industry analyst firm in seconds. There are 94 countries that I've found cybersecurity vendors in. Obviously, there are probably many more. The bottom of this list, so the top is interesting, right? The United States has half of all vendors, and Israel is the biggest second one. No surprise there, except for the fact that China, which I don't put a lot of effort into tracking because I assume none of us in this room buy products from China, Chinese cybersecurity vendors. I'm sorry, everything we buy is from China. except for their cybersecurity products. But they have over 1,100 cybersecurity vendors. So they're 4 times as big as Israel in cybersecurity. Thankfully, they don't come to the United States and compete with us. So for now, we don't have to worry about Chinese vendors in our market scopes, et cetera. But very interesting that more and more vendors have more and more countries have over 100 vendors in them. I like to look at the long tail where Malta has 1, Iceland has 2. Those are always interesting to track. And might as well look at vendors by state. And of course, California has the most, about 770. So more than 3 times, the state of California has more than 3 times the number of vendors in Israel. Every time I put that data out there in LinkedIn, somebody from Israel says, yeah, but how much per capita? And I go, yeah, you do divide by the populations of the state of California and the state of Israel, and Israel is on top. Per capita, they have more cybersecurity vendors. Still, you go to the Bay Area and you can't turn around without finding a cybersecurity vendor. Excuse me. Notice that Florida is number 6. Florida has 90 cybersecurity vendors, and that's a trend that I've been tracking the vendors in Florida for 20 years, and there used to be only a few that were spun off from some defense contractors. Florida is one of the more desirable spots for an Israeli company to settle when they're coming over here. And of course, it's just the industry has just grown, and it helped a lot by KnowBe4 going public. So as long as you got all this data on all the vendors, why don't we quickly graph the founding year of all the vendors? This is the chart. When I first saw this, I go, wait a minute, there's a glitch. One of my data entry people in India fat fingered the 1763, is that? So I went to look at what company was founded in 1763. Sure enough, there's a German company that is in the identity space that was founded in 1763. They started out as a manufacturer of components for printers and evolved over time, and finally in the late 60s and 70s got into the identity world and are now a full-fledged cybersecurity company. But obviously this industry really kicked off with antivirus in the 80s, and by 1993, 94, we had the first commercial firewalls with Checkpoint, and it's taken off since then. I want to make sure you understand that this is, of all the vendors that are existent and active today, these are the dates that they were founded. So it doesn't include all the vendors that got acquired and absorbed by other companies. So that's why 2024 is so low. It's about 50 right there. And yet that doesn't say that only 50 companies were founded last year. It just says I won't discover them until the next 2 or 3 years because they don't come out of stealth, they don't make a splash, they don't attend conferences, they don't get funded. It's still worth tracking. So to give you a quick feel of 2025 to date, I did a quick scan last night. So 43% of all vendors have added to headcount so far this year. So it's always a healthy sign of a vendor's growing in headcount. There's like just night and day difference between one that's shrinking and one that's growing. And I get pushback on this a lot, but headcount is an excellent proxy for sales. And in this era, post Silicon Valley Bank failing, most companies are cutting back on, most vendors are cutting back on spending, and they don't hire a new person unless they can justify it with new revenue that comes with it. So for now anyways, other than the ones that are getting $500 million in funding, the headcount is a great proxy for their health. So if 43% are growing and only 29% are losing headcount, I count that as a sign of a very healthy industry. Another sign is how much investment is going into it. These are numbers just through last month, saying a total of $6.1 billion has been invested in 102 companies so far this year. If it continues like that, there are going to be 300 companies that take in new investment and close to $18 billion in investment this year. That will make it, that would be just even with last year. I suspect that we're going to see even more. Just after going to RSA and hearing the scuttlebutt on the show floor, it looks like there's going to be a lot of M&A activity and investment activity. So I think we're going to be closer to $20 billion. So it'll be close to the second highest investment year on record. When you heard investors and pundits talking last year and the year before that we'll never see 2021, 2022 again, they were wrong. It's going to be there. It'll be higher than that within 2 or 3 years at this rate. So what I've been arguing is that the industry is healthy, the industry is growing, and I think by just looking at those numbers, you get that feel. So there's some other things to be drawn from all this. First of all, there is no consolidation in cybersecurity, with the caveat that the antivirus space consolidated. And the two drivers for that, of course, were the new EDR and endpoint protection solutions, but most predominantly it was Microsoft giving away antivirus for free. That just killed most of the standard antivirus products. So we've had a little of consolidation in that. But when Palo Alto Networks or Cisco buys somebody and the journalist reporting on it says, in a continuing sign of consolidation, this happened, that's not the case at all. Consolidation is when the 104 auto companies in my home region, Detroit, went from 104 to 4. That was consolidation, right? So General Motors bought Chevrolet and Oldsmobile and Pontiac. Or the hotel chains in the United States now, I think we're down to 2. There's been so much consolidation, right? It's not happening in cybersecurity. There are 4,000 independent companies in cybersecurity, and it's going to be that way as long as the bad guys keep iterating on their attack methodologies. And as long as technology keeps growing. We come up with the cloud, all of a sudden we need cloud security. We come up with AI, all of a sudden we need AI security. So that's one point. But I guess if I get on my soapbox, believe it or not, I asked ChatGPT to create an image of best of breed versus a platform. And it came up with these beautiful dogs that are purebreds on either side of the mutt in the middle. And so this is, don't be offended if you're a dog person or a dog rescue person, because that's a beautiful dog, but that's the image it gave us. But here's my point. I've been in this industry for 30 years, and I've been an analyst as all of the biggest vendors have always claimed that they're going to deliver a platform, and that's what they're doing, and that you should buy only from them. It's not a platform, it's a marketing ploy to be sole sourced. That's all it is. And I don't blame them for doing it. They should certainly try and sell new products to existing customers, right? That's the way to grow once you're as big as one of these companies. But they've never demonstrated that they can integrate products, right? They can't get to a single pane of glass. And even if they could, I would argue that the best of breed products are going to be better. One approach that you can do is try and buy the best of breed, but as soon as you buy them, they're no longer the scrappy little company like a Wiz that's growing and making its customers happy, right? They're part of a giant behemoth that loses track, and there's a new best of breed company that comes afterwards. And I'll leave you with this thought. Just look at history and remember the fate of all those companies that have tried platformization as a strategy in the past. So we got Symantec, CA, McAfee, they're all gone. Those companies failed drastically. They lost money for their investors. Private equity made a lot of money in the process, but those companies failed. And a company that's claiming that they should be sole sourced for your buying attention is the one that is going to fail next. So the other thing I realized only fairly recently, I was impressed by a scenario that was planned out by a group of AI ethicists from the Rational Society, and they call it AI 2027. Definitely read that scenario, the synopsis anyways, because they go into deep detail, and find the videos online of them talking about it. But it follows very logically that, look at AI is growing in intelligence about 10x every year. The AI researchers at OpenAI and Anthropic, Google, etc., are already using their AI to help them with the programming tasks and to strategize new approaches to training and new approaches that could lead to the next equivalent of transformers as being able to enhance AIs. They're talking about having AI agents that are AI researchers. And this scenario claims that by the end of 2026, they will be as good as humans at doing AI research. Now, my son's an AI researcher. I've met a lot of AI researchers, and they are really smart people, right? PhDs in topology, et cetera. And they are coming to the point where they think that AIs will be smarter than them by late 2026. And at that point, they'll deploy millions of them in order to research the next AIs to replace those AIs. And that's going to be the breakaway point. So what does that mean for security? I totally discount where they think the world's going after that happens. They think the end of the world comes, AI is going to build robots, and they're going to try and figure out how to kill us. I don't know how you get there unless you grew up watching Terminator. But taking that aside, what does it mean for these nascent SOC bots that we're hearing about? You've probably all been approached by startups like Quiller and the rest that have agents that can actually do the tier 1 analysis, and some are doing tier 2 analysis. And they're starting to use 100% triage in their taglines, which is a dream come true, right? You go to bed at night without worrying about the 43,000 alerts that you haven't acted on, and you're never going to act on them because there's 45,000 new alerts the next day. Just triage them all. Do them all. And use as many AI bots as you want to do it. Now, the ones I've talked to, they impress me, they convince me that they're working on something good, but I haven't actually seen it being purchased. But I just came away from RSA and I talked to a bunch of these startups. They are telling me about their customers. And it's not just trials, they are literally buying AI agents. I thought that by the end of the year this would happen, but it's already happening. That means by the end of the year, there'll be a massive movement to buy these things. So that's going to lead to some interesting developments. One, I think right now there's only about 16, here are 14 of the AI bots that you can talk to today. I found 2 more at RSA, so 16. I think there'll be another 50 by the end of the year. In the next 6 months, there'll be 50 startups that we learn about that are probably already there. And of course, some of the existing companies are developing their own too. So there'll be hundreds and hundreds of choices. I think one of them, maybe one on this list, will be worth $1 billion in valuation by the end of the year. When I wrote this a week before RSA, that seemed like that was way out there and crazy. But the first day of RSA, Protect AI was acquired for $620 million. And Protect AI is doing the boring, mundane, protect your models in your environment, the AI safety side of things, not the exciting, oh my God, everyone's going to have a SOC, you're just going to buy one. It only costs $50,000 a year to have SOC agents working for you. Your MSSPs will immediately transition over to having automated tier 1, tier 2 analysts in their SOCs. So everybody's going to be able to take advantage of this. When we're at that level, we're going to see a drop in cybercrime. It will not be as effective as it was, because for once in the history of cybersecurity, the defender is going to be at the advantage because we can buy these tools, whereas the attackers weren't planning ahead. They weren't saving their money. They were buying luxury vehicles in Russia and Ukraine. They're not going to be able to invest enough in order to counter the types of things that these are going to do. So we'll be left with nation states trying to attack us. And most of us are not subjects of nation state attacks, right? It's only if we're secondary to the target, right? They'll go after us, and they might try and collect everything. And we'll suffer the consequences of China shutting off the power grid, but it's still going to be on a completely different level. The cost of an attack is going to start to rise to that level for a nation state even, that'll be more expensive to carefully cultivate an AI in order to penetrate Lockheed Martin or somebody. That'll be more expensive than just bribing somebody at Lockheed Martin, right? Or having agents infiltrate Lockheed Martin, et cetera, which is a very high bar, but it's always been the bar when you consider if it's our duty to increase the cost for attackers, then that's the number you got to look at. How much does it cost to bribe one of my people or get an attacker hired and in? So I think we're in for a brave new world. It's going to be exciting. And I invite you to come to the after party and drinks because I'm signing my book. And thanks to Digital Era, you can get a free copy signed. Thank you very much.